Hello and welcome to Press Row on RFM. I'm Todd Robbins. Press Row is your place for questions and answers and conversations. And today we've got a great place to start our questions and answers and conversations. And of course, in this world and time of social distancing, there is nothing better than a little bit of social distancing broadcast-wise. As immediately next door in the box on the other side of the screen, we welcome our guest for this episode of Press Row with Chad Garner, Communications Coordinator, Fitchburg Public Schools, Assistant Varsity Baseball Coach, Fitchburg High School, and a number of other hats that we'll talk about as well. Chad, welcome to the program.
Hey, Todd and Kate, thank you very much for having me. And, definitely a unique situation here with Zoom and, just looking forward to talking a little sports and maybe some life things here, something to break up our days.
Oh, without a doubt, and hopefully break up the viewers' days as well. We've been talking about this balance of obviously informing while also educating, while also entertaining people. And in a world without sports, without the arts, without a lot of other things, it's hard to balance those things in life where you don't have anything other than really COVID-19 and this pandemic on your mind day in and day out.
Really, the only thing you have right now is your family. So if you're blessed to have people surrounding you that that are in your house, I mean, you just spend a lot of time with them. You can get to learn and know them a little bit more. And try to have a good time and really just try to kill the days, so to speak. And hopefully this is going to be all over. Soon we go about our daily lives and just realize that the time that we spent, inside has been worth it and been more meaningful for our families.
I think in so many ways too, we have figured out just how fragile the world that we all live in and all the things that we prioritize ahead of perhaps those families that we're spending time with, just how fragile they are and maybe how much more attention we maybe should refocus elsewhere.
I really feel like, you look at it like, how many things do you honestly miss now? Like you miss, you just miss so many different things, so many different people, so many different activities. You just miss your day-to-day life, how it is, your spouse's day-to-day life, your kids, your friends, your family. It's like, a lot of that has been taken away. And, you hope we come out of this a lot stronger in the end, which I think we will. It's just a matter of time. It's a waiting game.
No, without question. And that waiting game, of course, is going to be part of what we will be talking about in a little bit for what comes next. But I mentioned the unique number of hats that you wear. So I was saying before we came on the air, perfect guest for this kind of a program because you have so many different viewpoints of what's going on. And of course, the world of sports and other things that it touches, especially in the world of education. So we mentioned Communications Coordinator, Fitchburg Public Schools, Assistant Varsity Baseball Coach at Fitchburg High School. You're a parent, which you mentioned, moments ago. So you have kids who are experiencing this as well. And you're a former member of the media. So we'll touch on all of that as well. We'll give you a chance to take those hats on and off as we rotate through the different sections of the program. But let's start first from the standpoint of the schools and, of course, working as Communications Coordinator at Fitchburg Public Schools. I think about this from a standpoint of schools and, of course, being an educator myself. This moment is kind of unprecedented in our lifetimes in that schools in Central Massachusetts and really across Massachusetts did not close for probably the last most recent national tragedy that we dealt with. And of course, that was September 11th, 2001. There was a slight disruption, in our days and people, of course, worrying about other people that were around. But I can remember a few days after that, it was, I think, like a Tuesday, the end of that week, high school football was played. It was one of the opening games of that 2001 season. At that time, you were wearing that member of your media hat. So this is a little bit unprecedented to have this kind of a national pandemic where everybody is kind of stuck in these kind of scenarios, can't really move around, and schools are out of session, athletics is out of session, everything's gone basically to full stop.
I tell you what, when all this started happening and, being in the school system and kind of knowing the inner workings of what goes on, you realize how many people are rallying together to try to make the right decision for everybody in the school system. So I think you look at so many different schools, people had different ideas. Should they close school for 2 days, a week, 2 weeks? What's the right time frame to close the schools, knowing that this pandemic was continuing and it was only going to get worse? So being on the inside and kind of knowing what happened, it's like, your heart is really brought through many different layers as far as what the right decision is. And obviously the right decision is always when you're leaning on protecting your students, protecting everybody that works in the school system, the number one thing is to making one safe. And obviously the decisions have been made. So now you look at it, what we're trying to do, I know, especially in Fitchburg, and I know in Leominster does the same thing here. We're trying to feed a lot of kids 18 and under. That has become a main focus, obviously, because nutrition is such an important factor. You think about the school, how many kids rely on those meals per day. And when that's taken away, you see so many people rally. I know, food nutrition throughout the country, I imagine, is booming right now. Please thank everybody in food nutrition if they're there, risking themselves potentially, getting the coronavirus to help other people. I mean, the selfless acts that are going on right now from the food industry to the medical fields, it's like, kudos to them. I mean, what we do right now, is very secondary to what the people on the front line, so to speak, are doing right now to try to help people get through this. So kudos to them.
Now, you bring about a very important note about education that I think people do miss sometimes. When they think about classes, they think about math and science and English and social studies and electives and all the other things that kids experience in education. And they do forget that for a lot of people in a lot of school districts and a lot of students, really some of the most important things that they get are the interactions with people in their lives. And because of their home situation maybe being more challenged than people realize, it's those services like food services, a hot breakfast and a hot lunch that they can rely on every day, as well as some friendly faces that they may not be fortunate enough to get elsewhere.
Right, Todd. I mean, I think what people, realize, and then some people don't realize, is school becomes the norm for so many kids, not knowing what a lot of kids' situations are when they leave school. In school, they're, definitely taken care of, by the school system, by the teacher, by everyone involved. And I mean, it becomes the norm for these kids. And I think obviously that's taken away right now. And then that hits you right in the heart, realizing, you never know what kids go back to, when they leave the school system. So that being taken away, it's really difficult. And you just hope that everyone's going to get through this, kids get back into school. We can start our normal routine again and everything will be fine. But up until then, you're trying to do anything you can to help out so many people.
You mentioned, of course, the different services and programs, and of course, you do represent kind of that forward-facing role for Fitchburg Public Schools. How has your role kind of led you to try to bring, of course, and highlight some of these services that are out there? How important is having that kind of communications position? Because it is kind of a unique position. School districts are just kind of warming up to the idea of really needing a forward-facing communications program to push out not only the educational good things they're doing, but in a case like this, the services that are still being offered even with the district closed.
Right. I tell you, Todd, when I made the really hard decision to leave full-time sports writing, this opportunity presented itself, and I really had to take a gamble on myself, first of all, but knowing how much and how important it is to help people, to tell their story, to tell a school system story, not only the school system, but the kids, the teachers, say food nutrition, all the other things that go into the school. I get to see these things and I get to highlight the great things that go on in the day-to-day in the school district. So that's the one great thing that I love about my job, that I'm able to do that. And obviously right now, all of this stuff from home and a lot of the stuff is slowed down. But when I was there, when I was still, in work, going down, watching all the people in food nutrition, passing out these, what, until you see something like that, you just don't really understand the importance that so many people have to be able to do something like that. So I look at it that I'm really fortunate to see a lot of great things that go on in the district, and I'm fortunate to be able to tell our story, to public school story. And it's not always positive. There's always, just like the media, there's positives and negatives. But what I think people realize in the role that I'm in is a lot of really good things go on, and I'm really proud to be a part of a district that puts a premium on the total child, the total education, how many people care. It's fun to be a part of.
Without a doubt. And of course, you mentioned kind of the opportunity to tell that story. And the story right now is a story about education literally being reimagined kind of on the fly while you're trying to take what you would do kind of in that normal face-to-face moment and those direct interactions in classroom. I know for me as an educator, that's the hardest part, is not being able to directly interact with my students on the daily. And of course, different pieces of software are trying to kind of replicate that in a lot of ways, but will never replace that direct interaction. You talk about, of course, reinventing education, not replacing it. What have you seen, of course, from Fitchburg Public Schools, from your position, as far as the way you guys are approaching adjusting education on the fly and trying to use this virtual world?
Well, I think day-to-day thing, and a lot coming through it are coming through trying to figure out what exactly the new model is going to be. You know, obviously you have the Google Class. I mean, I'm just learning that right. Actually watching Google Classroom from my sixth grade. I've never been a part of that. I didn't understand what the model is. I'm honestly learning that right now. You know, I was looking at it about an hour ago. So I think a lot of teachers may be in that boat where they have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, to try to provide these services for the students, how to communicate with the students, how to enrich the students. Oh, there's been a lot of online enrichment and a lot of, you know, and we're in that same boat right now, but it's, do you have the access, you know, to be able to do this stuff? Not everything's going to be a packet, a handout right now, because a lot of people aren't in the district right now working. You know, so it's how do you provide the best quality education, you know, based on limited resources. I think every school district right now is juggling that and try to find the right balance to help every child. But you know, I mean, it's day to day, it's changing, just like this pandemic continues to change. The way education right now is continuing to change, and how kids are learning is continuing to change.
One of the things I noticed on the Fitchburg Public Schools website has been the kind of the web interface that has been created kind of as a repository for people to be able to go and access and steer. They're trying to creatively use, you know, media like television and video productions as well that are out there. There's a lot of different ways to try to adjust activity. I know the Commissioner of Education here in Massachusetts has tried to make that a point as well, which is education doesn't just have to be stay on lesson, introduce new content, advance things. It can be getting out and getting physical activity. It can be going out and planting a garden. You can learn a lot in a non-traditional environment.
Absolutely. I think our technology department, led by Eileen Spinney, has been absolutely outstanding. The resources that they're harvesting, putting it on our website, to have these online enrichments, you know, for children to do. And that's from pre-K to kindergarten to all the way through high school. I mean, there's something for everybody if you're able to take advantage of those enrichment opportunities. I mean, that is better than obviously doing nothing. And that's the key. We want to keep our students educated, keep them on some sort of a schedule. And I'm going to use that loosely because I think everybody's definition of a schedule right now it is day to day. I mean, my schedule is day to day. I mean, my laptop is always on, you know, for my work shift, so to speak. And, you know, but I think for the learning model, I mean, you may want to learn from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., or you may want to learn from 2 p.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. Every kid is different. I have 2 kids at home, and I see how they're different right now as far as their learning. You know, we're not a household full of 100% structure. We have, my wife is working right now downstairs. You know, I'm up here right now, and I have 2 kids that, you know, are learning when they want to learn, unless we have to drop the iron fist and they're going to learn at that certain point. But, you know, everyone's different. I just hope people are taking advantage of it and trying to, you know, enrich themselves.
Without a doubt. And of course, trying to create at least some point where we can leap off and continue that education and try to fill in the gaps, whether that's at the end of this 2019-2020 school year, or whether it really ultimately is going to start again come late August and early September with the 2020-2021 school year for the students that obviously return and are not, you know, of course, graduating and advancing on to whatever comes next for them. And of course, part of that plays into the other hat that you wear as an assistant varsity baseball coach. And of course, sports in some ways has also not just at the high school level, but at the college level and professional level have screeched to the non-existent, as we have seen in this world. And as I look at, of course, one of the things you said to me when we were setting up this time together was that you're driving yourself crazy, wanting to find a diamond somewhere to get involved with this sport. How difficult is it being disconnected from a sport that you know on the calendar? And by the way, on a year where you could actually have gotten out and played in March, how difficult is it to be in a scenario where there is no baseball to be a part of right now?
I tell you what, the most difficult thing for me right now is missing my kids. I have a great deal of respect and a great deal of pride for Fitchburg, and Fitchburg baseball, being a part of it for my third year now. I know with Ray Cosenza as the head coach, we talk occasionally right now through a lot of texting and things like that. And the one thing we always talk about is how much we miss our kids. We know the work that they want to put in. We have kids. We may not be pound for pound the best talent across the board, but I tell you what, pound for pound, we got a bunch of heart. We got a bunch of kids that love the sport, that really listen to us, that want to get better. And I just want to be back out there with them. I want to watch them compete. I want to watch them try to get better, regardless of what the situation is. If it's 8 games, 10 games, 12 games, no playoffs. At this point, we really don't care. I want to be able to coach these guys. They love baseball. For our seniors, it's their last hurrah, so to speak. And trying to be an old guy now, thinking about back in my day as a high school senior, if that was taken away from me, I can only imagine what it would feel like now. But I get a really good understanding from talking to my kids, what they feel like if this season's taken away from them. Because you know what, you grow up through the system and you hope to one day be that senior and to, everyone dreams about winning the ultimate prize. But right now, I don't think anybody's even dreaming that. Everybody's dreaming just to get on the field and compete with their friends, to be with their friends and to just love the game like they do. So that's the hardest thing. And from a parent standpoint, I guess my kids, I tell them a lot that they're blessed that they have a dad who loves the game of baseball. I tell you what, my arm hurts so bad right now, Todd, from playing so much long toss with my kids. I will do anything I can to put them in a position to succeed. I'll find a little league diamond. I found some diamonds in the area, okay, that we've used to be on a mound and to be able to throw, to take some long toss. You do anything you can to stay in shape and to be ready. And I preach that to everybody. I preach that to my Fitchburg kids. I've went online. I've tweeted about it. I want these athletes, and I don't care what spring sport it is, be ready. You have to believe that you're going to play again this year. And until somebody tells you that there's no season, in your mind as an athlete, you need to be ready. So that means you got to eat right. You got to train. You got to work on your craft as much as you can. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is taken away. If you're a baseball player, can you find somewhere to hit? Do you have a net to hit into? Do you have a parent who will play catch with you? Do you have a brother or sister or mother or father who will play catch with you? There are different ways to go about things to try to keep you at least somewhat ready until they tell you you can take the field again. So my advice to them is to just try to stay ready. Do something every day for your mind academically, do something for your mind athletically, and then physically do things that will help you physically in your health, but obviously in the sport that you play as well.
With the athletes that you've had the chance to speak to, how are they handling this shutdown from a standpoint athletically? Obviously, they want to be there, they want to be at the tryout, like you said, they're hungry, they wanted the opportunity to go out and continue to improve. How are they handling this basically forced postponement?
I tell you what, I work for Fitchburg Athletics too, which we do a online site for sports writing, and I just did a piece. So I did a piece on what's the psyche of the athlete right now, knowing that this could all end. And I got a couple seniors that I actually interviewed. One's Devin LeBlanc, who's an outfielder for us, and the other one's a senior, Sammy Robichaud. And the underlining message was, if the season's taken away, it's going to be very devastating, and it's something that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And you know what? When I read those quotes from them, it really hit me to say, you know what? I hope the MIA does everything possible that they can to just delay the decision. at this point, that's all we can do. It's kind of a wait and see approach, but do the best you can to hopefully for us to get back on the field, to give them some semblance of a season. And I'm saying even if it's 8, 10, 12 games, playoffs, no playoffs, at this point, Todd, and I know you're probably in the same boat, no one really cares. Everybody just wants to get back to the sports that they love. They want to get back to school first and foremost, to start that daily routine that they're used to. Seeing their friends, that's a big component of life.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of times you remember in school is about the friends that you have, the experiences that you create. And you know what, athletically, those experiences definitely are magnified. So to take sports away from kids, I understand where they're coming from. And me as a 44-year-old adult and a coach, for it to be taken away from them, that really hurts me, because as much as I love the game, I really play no part in the game of baseball now. I basically just coach. That was a big bang back here. My kids must be throwing a ball around. But that to be taken away, that would really hurt. And I'm just thankful that the MIA has not ended the season yet. It's still that wait and see approach. So kudos to MIA. They take a lot of criticism for a lot of things they do, but in this one, I think they're getting it right now, because they're doing everything they can to try to give these kids a chance to play.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And that's kind of where I want to go with my next question, is that to this point, from what we've seen from the MIAA, they are doing everything they possibly can to not sack the entirety of this season, going so far as to yesterday redefine the 2020 season again by a 19-0 vote to go from May 4th, which is the governor's kind of expected opening date, to June 27th, which would take them within 3 days of the official end of the school year, where the budgets will not allow them to go any farther, which people, I think sometimes don't realize there are some laws that kind of limit how far this can really go. But to take it within 3 days, and with a rain date, I think, of the 28th, would bring them within 2 days of how far they can go. The debate, as you mentioned, do we have a tournament? Do we not have a tournament? Is 12 to 15 games of a regular season enough? What do you really ultimately think is the best fit if you got to make the decision?
I mean, I love it. I love that window from the 8 to 12 games. I really feel like in that window, because you're going to have the first, for baseball wise, I think it's the 7 days that you're going to have the tryouts from May 4th. So May 11th might be the first day that you could actually play a game. And the most games I think you could play in a week is 3.
Yep.
So if you do the math that way, I think that 8 to 12 game window is pretty fair, because you know what? As a spring athlete, we're dealing with weather a lot. Rain in May is notorious. So to say that window, that 8 to 12, I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, the added caveat is they're talking about a playoff system. Before, they talked about not having it if it extended past April 27th. So I'm definitely intrigued by that, because it gives your spring athletes something to chase now. Not only are they chasing that last year of having fun with their friends playing the sport that they love, but you know what? There may be a chance to actually play some semblance of a playoff, which is great. So I'm almost under the idea of whatever the MIA decides, I'm 100% behind if it's for the betterment of our student athletes. If it gives them an opportunity to play, I don't care if there's a playoff. I don't care if it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. At this point, it really doesn't matter. I just want those kids to be able to bond with each other like they have over the years. And for your seniors to be able to send them out the right way playing, win, lose, or draw, championship or no championship. They're with their friends. They're playing for their jersey. In our case, they're playing for Fitchburg across the chest. And that means a lot. That means a lot to the city. That means a lot to the guys in Leominster. I have 2 kids that are Leominster kids. I understand the importance of that. It's important to play, city pride, play for your friends, play for your school. I'm just hoping that they're able to do that.
You mentioned the hope, of course, that players are going to be able to be ready, and you want them to work on something, every single day to be ready. At this time of social distancing, that's going to involve some creativity. And of course, baseball is such a team, family sport, where it's all about building that team, as a lot of sports are. So in this time of social distancing and being creative, how do you develop that team concept, that camaraderie, even when you can't be together?
I think from our situation in Fitchburg, luckily, we have a lot of returning guys. we have a lot of guys that have played together. So that chemistry you almost feel like is going to be there, whether it's going to be the first 4 practices, the first few games, the chemistry starts developing. Just like any team, chemistry happens in different parts of the season. Now, a team that might be a bunch of kids that don't know each other, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But you know what? I really feel like if you're in it 100% and you guys are all pulling the same rope, so to speak, that chemistry was going to develop at a certain point. And I think just the fact of these kids trying to get out there and play first and foremost is the biggest thing. We'll worry about the chemistry down the road here. I think the number one thing is to get them reps, get them game ready, not only physically, but mentally. And that's obviously going to take time. You know, you're a different product in game 1 through 4 than you are from, say, 8 to 12. So how much can you grow from day 1, which could be May 4th, to, you know, June 27th, which would be the last possible day. Every program's different. Every year they grow differently. And I know I keep saying this, it sounds like a broken record, but I just hope they get an opportunity to end on the right note. And obviously, I mean, that means going back to school. If there's going to be no school, I guarantee you there will be no sports. So I'm hoping we go back to school for that, you know, for that normalcy to start. And then you get that added bonus of being able to play a spring sport that you love. I mean, that would be the best of both worlds for everybody involved.
Gives the student athlete another reason to root for the return to school somewhere along the way. Let's talk about this 2020 season that may or may not be. You alluded to it a little bit about the number, of course, of returning players that you guys have. You guys have undergone, and really with head coach Ray Cosenza, yourself, and the rest of the staff, a rebirth, a rebuilding of this Fitchburg baseball program. And this was a year where you had a real chance to maybe see the fruits of that labor, the hard work of those seniors over the 4-year time really pay off. Talk to me a little bit about what you were expecting on the field from your returning athletes.
Well, first and foremost, we're expecting them to play hard. I mean, like I said before, we have kids that really play hard. Pound for pound, we may not be the most talented team across the board from Midwatch, C, B, and A, but you know what? When you play Fitchburg, you better be ready. We're tough. They're a bunch of tough kids. They compete. They love one another. I mean, we've really preached that family atmosphere. And I came in, this was my 3rd year. So 5 years ago, Ray came back and took over the program, him and Craig Antossi, who's now the AD at Fitchburg. And you know what? Those guys really started the revival of the program. And a lot of it was built on that hard work and to be accountable. And I think in life, you have to be accountable. Whatever you do, there's that accountability factor. You don't go blaming other people. You take responsibility for what you can control. It's on you. And as a team, if everybody does that, you know what, you have a chance to do some special things. And based on our team, I really feel like we have some good pieces in place. We have some hardworking kids. We have some talent. We lost some talent too. I'm not going to say that we haven't. Every year people, you know, are losing talent. You know, pitching wise, we might have had to rely on, you know, some younger guys that might not have as much experience, but I feel like they can develop. And I feel like our middle infield will be really good. I feel like our infield defense is going to play really well. And you know what? If we preach, you know, throwing strikes, getting ahead of the count, letting your defense work, good things happen if you can do that and limit walks. So, you know, I'm excited, and I'm still excited. I'm still a believer we're going to play again. You know, and I want my kids to believe that. I want every kid in Central Mass, regardless of what sport, to believe that they're going to play. Because it's going to make me feel really happy as a coach, not just from Fitchburg High School, but in general, to see these kids take the field and know the excitement that they have for their sport, and to realize that it was that close to being taken away from them if we can get back out there. So, you know, every day I'm hoping and I'm believing that we're going to get back out there for these kids.
Without a doubt, I think you make a great point, be it that they've come so close. Should baseball or any other sport this spring get played, I think given the fact that it came so close to there not being sports in this spring 2020 season, I think you're going to see some tremendous battles. People are going to be going out of their way to give their absolute best. That grind of the season is not going to exist. There will be no dog days of the spring season, so to speak, because everybody's so itching and raring to really go out and be able to compete in a meaningful way. I think you make a great point. To that point, you alluded to your seniors a little bit ago, and of course, some of the leadership that you guys have, and they may or may not get a chance to play. They may have already played their final game, and they never knew it at that point in time. Talk a little bit about the seniors that have been with your program, especially through the time you've been there over the last 3 years.
Well, I mean, every year, you know, I've been lucky because we've had kids come through the pipeline, and they've really left it all on the line. You know, kids that graduated last year, like Sage Bray, you know, had been a really strong force for us. He was 2 years ago. Anthony Silverio last year, who was our, you know, slick fielding shortstop. Kid came to play every day, really tough as nails. And then, you know, this year we have Devin LeBlanc, who's, you know, top of our order guy, an outfielder. He's one of our captains. Sammy Robichaud, who's our probably toughest senior leader. He's a football kid. He's really nitty gritty. You know, he's our catcher. You know, those two kids are our staples right now. We have, you know, one really excellent player who's a junior in Zach Scott. If people don't understand who he is right now, this kid, and I will say he's pound for pound one of the best players in the state, and I'm not afraid to say that because I know how much work that kid puts into the game, how much he loves the game. He works at it. He plays on different travel teams. He's a kid to watch out for. I really feel like the sky's the limit for him. And you know what? We have just a bunch of kids that love the game. We have some really good freshmen that are coming up who are some pitchers that, you know, you hope that you have those pitchers as freshmen to lead you through those 4 years. I really feel like our program has grown as far as numbers wise. We have more kids that are baseball kids, and we need more of those kids. So it's really important for us to extend the olive branch to the youth sports. We have to build the youth sports. And I always say that we're all in this together. You know, you might be the high school coach, you might be a high school assistant, you know, but you know what? Those Fitchburg, Cal Ripken people are super important to us. That's what starts our development. You see it here in Leominster. I'm involved in Leominster, North Leominster Little League. And you know what? You see the kids from, you know, basically the infancy stage, from that 4, 5, 6-year-old, the kids that continue to play. All of a sudden you turn your head, they're high school players, and you realize that it takes a village. It really does to help these kids grow, from your Little League coaches to your middle school coaches to your JV coaches to high school. It's really those core people that really make a big difference. And we're trying to do that here in Fitchburg as well. And are we behind some other programs in that? Yes, but we're starting to catch up. I think we have more people believing in Fitchburg baseball. It's a belief. It's a belief in the program. It's a belief in the people that run these programs. But you know what? It's a belief in the kids. These kids have to believe that they're going to be good if you put in the hard work. And that goes with anything. That's kind of a microcosm for life. If you put in the work and believe in something and really put your nose to the grindstone and do the job, good things are going to happen in your life a lot of the times. Obviously, we're all going to deal with some heartaches, whether it's a loss of anything. You know, if you can get up, dust yourself off, and continue to battle, man, you're a really good person in life. And there's a lot of people, men and women, that are like that every day. You know, what we do as a coach in the whole realm of things, it's not as important as some people in the world, even right now. Look at the nurses that are out there right now. Kudos to them. I mean, they're everybody's hero right now. You know, we talk about police, fire, military. They're always our heroes day to day. But I think nurses right now, oh my gosh, they're amazing. Nurses, doctors, everybody in the medical field, what they're doing right now. I mean, you just hope that they're safe as well. I know I kind of went on a tangent there, and you know, but it's like, I really feel like in times like this where you have a lot of time to think, life, you start thinking about life a little bit more. It's not only about you and your family and things that are really important to you on a day-to-day basis. You kind of, your eyes open up and say, man, this is a big world, and there's a lot of people in this world that do a lot of great things.
And we get a chance to see a lot of that on the everyday. And of course, you have a chance to set that table a little bit as one of the other things you're doing. And you mentioned it a little while ago. Of course, you've got two boys there, one in middle school, one in high school. That you're running now as I termed it here, it's Garner Middle High Homeschool, which is what you have going on right now.
Right.
Give us a peek. What does Garner Middle High Homeschool look like on the everyday?
On the everyday right now, well, let's see what time of day that my kid's going to wake up or go to bed. I think last night was probably 1 a.m. they decided to go to bed. Normally it's probably like a 10 or 11. My older one typically will go to bed at 11, and if I beat him to bed, he might go to bed at 12. They're playing video games. Obviously, there's a lot of video games. My little one plays more video games. My older one is more on his phone. I guess in this day and age with the social distancing, I'm actually promoting a little bit of video game use. I mean, it's the only way you can communicate right now. I mean, this is my first day on Zoom, Todd. Look at this. I'm learning new things every day. They're doing a little bit of enrichment. I know my wife went down to the middle school at Skyview today to pick up some enrichment packages for my younger one. He's starting to do that. My older one says he did his work already today. So they're also blessed. They go to Power Source in Leominster. Jim Herrick, I think you're familiar with Jim. Yep. He does, personal training. Obviously, both my kids go to him, and with the pandemic, they had to close, but what they're doing is they're giving them at-home workouts. So kudos to Jim Herrick and his staff for doing that. I mean, it's something that he didn't have to do. So my kids are starting to do that. I've got a great friend, Mike Nelson, at our kids both play triple play baseball in Clinton together. He's really big into health and fitness. I've really started to do that with his program. So proud to say it's like day 11. I'm actually working out every day, and he's doing that for the team to try to stay active. We'll go outside. I'm going to go find a diamond pretty soon, throw some BP to my little one today. My older one will go to a bullpen session tomorrow. We will find a bullpen to do that. I'm trying to keep things normal for them. Normal for them is activity. Mm-hmm. Normal for them is, obviously normal for them is to be at school, and that's not happening. So I guess they're being as normal as just like every other kid right now is trying to be normal and getting them outside. I'm really promoting to be outside. I want them to go outside. They don't get to do that in school a lot. You're in a classroom a lot of the day. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Garner extracurricular activities that are allowed here. My house has been turned into a BMX bike track with my little one riding his mountain bike around here, tearing up my lawn. But you know what? He's outside doing something, so I guess I'll fix it, at some point. We're just trying to do the best we can, just like everybody else. I think there's no carbon copy of what everybody should do. If you could do a little enrichment every day with schoolwork, athletically, work on your health and fitness, work on your sport, anything that will pass the day along and still promote social distancing and, trying to do the right things. I mean, I think if we all do our part, this will be over at some point.
They are both old enough to understand, obviously, what's going on in the world around them. How much has the conversation from them been about the world around them, the curiosities, and how have you kind of talked to them about what's going on in this kind of pandemic scenario?
You know what? My older one, who's 14 years old, is probably a little bit more in tune of what's going on based on, he's got the world in his hand with his phone, so to speak. My little one, obviously, is a little bit, more inquisitive, so to speak, about, what's going to happen. He's more on those lines of, it won't happen to us. We can go to Dick's Sporting Goods. We can go to Petco, wherever we want to go, what we normally would go, we just can't do that now. So it's more telling him that we're trying to keep everyone safe. And by that, you could be carrying the virus around, and it could be coming home to us, and then we get sick, then you pass it on to somebody else. You just never know. So I think with him, it's more, my younger one's 11, and I think he more wants to know, like, is this really truthful? Can this really happen and it won't happen to us? So I think it's more reinforcing that we have to be smart. We have to wash our hands all the time. You just have to be careful, and you have to really promote social distancing. And I know around here, I live in Leominster, Todd, and I'll go around town when I'm driving to my fields. I honestly have not seen anyone in a groups of maybe more than 5. And if those 5 people were together, they were a family. So just based on what I'm seeing, and I'm not driving around much, I've really been a recluse, and I've stayed home, and my wife has done the shopping, and I've kind of stayed here, and tried to do the right things. But I don't see or even hear around here. It's not like Florida where they're all getting around, and we all know what that's like. I mean, everyone's bringing that back, and it hasn't been like that here. So I'm hoping we're all doing our small part, to keep everyone else safe, and hopefully by May 4th we're all back to school, and our lives are kind of get back to a little bit of normalcy.
Central Mass is a great destination for community events, not so much a great destination for spring break, thankfully, at this point in time. All right, one more hat for you that I got to have you put on here, because of course we've spent a lot of time talking about how this pandemic influences this 2020 season, but there's been a lot of other conversations that have been pushed aside at this point in time that related to other decisions the MIAA has made. So we'll put on that former media member hat. I've been watching some of your posts on social media when some of these decisions were made relative to the new MIAA statewide playoff that was not slated to start in 2020-2021, but has been enacted to begin in 2021-2022. We've got to keep these dates straight as they start moving around. So there's a year away, basically. There'd be a full school year in between when this gets played. Based on what I saw on social media, you are a proponent. What was your reason why? What do you like about the idea of this new system?
I guess I'm kind of in between on all this. I didn't love the proposal. I liked it the way it was, to be honest with you. I loved having to battle through the rigors of Central Mass to be crowned a champion in Central Mass, going to the state semis. Obviously, that was always against Western Mass. And then, state finals. I really liked that road. With the whole statewide playoff, I get it. The one thing I really don't like, and no one can convince me to like it, is I really don't like the travel. I don't like if you had to travel 2 or 3 hours to go to a place to sit on a bus, okay? Let's say right off the bat, we know who the advantage is right away. The advantage is the team that's sitting around waiting for that other team to drive 2 hours on a school bus, okay, to get to that destination, all right? Do I want to sit around for 2 hours? No. Are there times in Central Mass where you got to travel maybe an hour and a half away? Say you got to go to Sturbridge or Tantasco. I mean, those trips aren't fun. So I get that. And you know what? There's a little give or take. So I'm willing to say, hey, if we're going to be grouped in the group that we should be in, the same division, okay, and the likes division of teams, instead of, where Fitchburg, I mean, we're having to play like St. John's. We drew them last year in the playoffs. Was it a mismatch on paper? Sure. St. John's should be way better than us. Did we compete against them? You're darn right we did. We lost a little gusto probably in like the 5th inning, and I think we lost maybe 9-5 or something like that. But we show we can compete, if we're on the same playing field as other teams, wherever we're deemed to be in what division. I'm all for that. It's, would it create excitement? I think it would be. Would the appeal to play, name a team on the South Shore, Todd? I don't even know.
Okay. I wrote some of these hypotheticals down. So
okay, give me a couple hypotheticals.
Hypotheticals for you. And now, and again, size here I didn't take into account. I just picked random distant towns. Okay. So does Fitchburg versus Danvers, Fitchburg versus Yarmouth Dennis, or Fitchburg versus Holyoke, do those get you as excited as Fitchburg versus Neshoba or Wachusett?
It definitely doesn't. But you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, Dennis, Yarmouth, what a beautiful place.
Absolutely.
I've been down there. I watched the Dennis Yarmouth Red Sox play the Hyannis Harbor Hawks a few years ago in the Cape. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful place. Now, does that mean we get to stay overnight or 2 days? I could be sold on that instead of going to, say, like, what was the other one they had? Holyoke?
Holyoke, yep. Home of
Holyoke Mall. The Holyoke Mall used to be great, by the way. Used to go there when I was a kid. My mother loved it. But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't have that appeal of, oh my gosh, you're going to draw, what did you say, Neshoba?
Neshoba, Wachusett.
Yeah. You know, St. Peter Marion, Leominster. I mean, you name it. So that's where I come from with the whole, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. And I know a lot of people say it was broke because you had some teams in certain divisions who shouldn't be there. Some would say a team like Fitchburg shouldn't be in Division One. Okay, some would say maybe they should be. So I understand both ways, but I think getting through the rigors of Central Mass, the teams that you hear about all year long, the teams that you can get scouting reports on pretty easily, and you kind of know them, instead of a team in Dennis Yarmouth that you don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, so there's something to say. Some people will be like, man, that's a pretty cool thing where you don't know your opponent at all. And some people will say, you know what, you'd rather play that rivalry game or a team that you really know a lot of. And, you know, where do you stack up in Central Mass? So I still like that aspect, but I've warmed up to the statewide playoff because, you know what, when they finally tell you that this is the way it's going to be, either you adjust and adapt or you go away. All right. I'm willing to adjust and adapt. I'm not going anywhere. I hope Fitchburg keeps him around for a very long time. You know, I just want our kids to compete. So whoever they say to play, you embrace the challenge. You don't complain about it. You roll your sleeves up and do the absolute best you can. Because as coaches, that's what we tell our kids to do all the time. Don't make excuses, battle, you know, and as a coach, I shouldn't be complaining because you know what? Your kids take on the personality of your coaching staff. And if I'm a complainer, you know what? They're going to have every reason to complain. Well, coach does that. Coach complains about everything. You're not going to hear me complain about that. I won't even complain to umpires this year. I will go on the record right now and say I will not complain to many umpires. Maybe in game 5 or 6, Todd, I changed my tune, but you know what? Right now, I love every umpire out there. If I can see them in this spring.
First couple of games, everyone gets a benefit until the first call that doesn't go their way.
Right.
You're only as good as your last call, and the last one that went in the direction of the favor of the team. One of the things about this tournament, I know that people either loved or hated or used it in kind of in opposition, was this destruction of leagues or of the district/sectional tournaments. And I like the kind of perspective that Air Shirley AD Steve Kendall pointed out, another former media member as well. It must be something about that in this conversation. I liked his point, which was the district sectional tournament problem isn't starting up now with this issue. It started back in 2012, 2013, when they started this first east to central, central to west shift that ended up happening across the state. So it's even, to me, it's about more than just the district piece of this as far as divisions where people stack up, but it was when all of a sudden Lincoln Sudbury was considered a central Massachusetts school and Leominster became a western Massachusetts school. And basically you had certain schools were having to carry or deal with the travel issues, but it was a very small portion that were having to deal with it. Whereas now, at least in this new format, everybody has to share in that burden one way or another, east, central, or west.
Right. I think the number one thing is like, you want every team to be placed in the proper division, right? Based on your school, based on, you know, however you want to base every decision on, you know, what's the equal playing field? Where does every team belong? And if that's going to be the case, and if there's parity across the board and where you belong, then you know what? We could go out to Dennis Yarmouth and play a game. And, you know, it could be a first round playoff game. It could be a third round game. I think what the fun part about this would be to actually look at the bracket. How many teams would be in this state bracket? It would be cool. It would be like that March Madness type of bracket. You know, oh, you're in the South bracket right now. You know, the Midwest is over here. You know, things like that. I think that would be fun. But embracing whatever the decision is, you kind of have to do at this point. It's set in place. All right. Hopefully there is parity and you don't have teams that shouldn't be in Division I or should be in Division II instead of Division III. And if you have that, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of complaints. And I know from my standpoint, and I said right off the bat, I didn't like to travel. You know what? It is what it is at that point. But that's not to say you could draw somebody that has to come to you for 3 straight games. You never know. If you have a good enough record, you may not have to travel for a while anyways. And your home field advantage is that. And you hope you have a team 2 or 3 hours away that has to come to you instead.
It's win and get in, or win and stay home.
Yep.
If you win a lot in that process. One of the centerpieces of this, I think that I might be a little bit of fun, because there hasn't been a lot of conversation about this among, I think, Central Massachusetts folks, but I saw at different meetings that we attended about, this, when they had these media events from the MIAA, was the Max Preps ranking piece. Now, I don't know about you when you were on the media side of things. I know, still being on the media side of things, the way I have always looked at Max Preps was kind of the way I looked at Wikipedia. I considered it like the Wikipedia of high school sports. Anybody who wanted to log on and put information into it, they got it. This is what it is, and it is taken as fact. This is now going to be the rating system that is going to control these brackets that you're alluding to. And by the way, fair to note that this was happening regardless, because regardless of the statewide playoff, one of the points that was made at the media meeting was that decision to go to Max Preps rankings was a done deal. And it was a done deal when they signed a contract a few years ago with Max Preps, that being the MIAA, in order to do this. So whether it was sectional tournaments to then state crossover tournaments to a state championship, or a full-on statewide bracket, Max Preps was going to be making the decisions of who went where regardless. So that didn't change things so much, because there was a lot of debate among the coaches at the meeting about Max Preps. And the MIA said, look, that's a done deal. We had already agreed to that before this vote went on. How reliable, how viable do you think Max Preps will be as the deciding factor, the centerpiece of the system?
Well, I think first and foremost, right away, Max Preps better be 100% accurate. All right, I'm going to put the pressure on them right now. Now, in all my years of sports writing, and that's over 20 years, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've honestly been on Max Preps. Okay, I really didn't use it, didn't need to use it. I tell you, my number one source to get updated standings, and I think a lot of people in Central Mass should feel the same way, is the Telegram and Gazette.
Absolutely.
I think they are outstanding. And I think you have like the Globe and the Herald. Those guys do a heck of a great job too. It's just not a source that I need to use for Central Mass. If I'm looking at standings in Central Mass, the Telegram was where I went. Now, I've heard a lot of, cons about Max Preps. I can't really say yes or no because I haven't used it a lot, but I'll say right now, if you are the number one source for all this, stats and standings, then you better be 100% accurate, and you better have a bunch of people working to make sure that those scores are called in, that your standings are updated, that everything is updated, in a prompt and timely manner, like the Telegram and a lot of our newspapers do on a daily basis.
The most disappointing part, I thought, when I asked this question at the meeting was, how does Max Preps, like, what is the equation, so to speak? Because this was always my thing about the Walker system. It was some magic thing that 5 ADs knew, and it was never published anywhere. The Telegram did a good job in recent years finding out kind of what the inner workings were and creating a spreadsheet that they could kind of, help us to understand this process. But it wasn't something that people, could tangibly understand on a broadcast, is the Walker system or any of these other things that have been used before. So I asked about this Max Prep system, and I was hoping to get a better answer than this, but the answer I got was, well, they're a company that's for profit. That is a proprietary equation, and therefore we don't know what goes into it, but they're the experts. They've been doing it long enough. They'll know how it's supposed to work at the end of the day.
Well, one word: transparency. Mm-hmm. Right? Apparently there isn't going to be any transparency on whatever formula that they use. So when there's no transparency right away, you're going to have people that A, question it, B, complain about it, because no one knows exactly what that formula is going to be to rank teams. And that right there is a problem in itself. So if Max Preps can say that they're going to be a little bit more transparent and give the formula away, that's great. I don't see why they wouldn't want to do that, to basically ease everyone's mind and to let everybody understand what formula that they're going to use to rank teams.
The one thing I took away from the idea of, at least again, what's rumored to be in the ranking, and if you search online, there is some articles, and there was a college student who had done some background on this as kind of a mathematical research project on what some of the features maybe of this. One of the items that they take into account is that there seems to be this not just kind of strength among your region or within your division, but against some kind of a national standard of like-sized teams seems to be part of the equation. Knowing that, if we look at how coaches prepare their schedules today, and we all know, although they'll remain nameless in the conversation here, that there are schools and there are teams in different sports that certainly have created schedules that are favorable to them in order to get to the 50% or better margin. Certain schools that have worked out deals to, maybe go up a division, but they could continue to play schools that are maybe lesser than because of rivalries, which is another, although part of RFM's name. Rivalries are great, but they're not great when they are disproportionately sized. In that conversation, do you think maybe this will at least force coaches to not stack their schedule with a bunch of teams that they can just beat, but actually stack them with teams that they can hopefully compete with in order to raise their overall profile so that we get better competition in high school athletics?
The short answer is no. I really don't feel like that is going to hold a lot of weight on some, and I'm going to say some programs, some schools. Obviously, some schools are really in the belief that you challenge your team and you put them in the toughest situations possible to prepare them for the playoffs, regardless of what seed you're at. While some other programs that might be, say, on the infancy stages of actually winning, where, you know what, you don't overload your schedule with really top teams because, you know what, you may not get into the tournament. I don't know. It's from a personal standpoint with me, and I I'm really in the belief that you have to challenge your teams at some point, right? You're only going to get better by playing better teams sometimes. And if you don't, you're almost doing them a disservice, because you know what? If the only thing you care about is your coaching record, okay, then you know what? You're not in it for the right reasons anyways. Now, could you have a really good team at 10-10? You're darn right you could. Is that 10-10 team better than that 15-5 team that you have based on the lack of talent that you played with that 15-win team? Certainly. That 10-10 team might be a heck of a lot better. And you know what? You get into that playoff type of format, and obviously you're going to be on the road, but you know what? Your team is already mentally tough. They faced the best competition around that you could put them against. And you know what? You could win a few games in that bracket. You could win the whole bracket. I'm not even going to say you could win one or two because you've been battle tested. So for the programs that want to challenge their teams, that really feel like playing the cream of the crop is the way to go, kudos to them. Now, on the other hand, if you've been a team that's really been beat up over the years and you're just trying to find an identity, yeah, you're not going to stack your games with all these elite teams, because you know what? Getting beat and getting your head kicked in so many times, it doesn't help your team that much. You'd almost want your team to be competitive first, okay? Once you reach that competitive stage, and that competitive means, did you win the game or lose? It doesn't matter. You were close. Now, can you get over that hump? In order for us to get over the hump, we're going to have to play a little bit better teams, And we're in that same boat right now in Fitchburg baseball. We're at that point right now where, you know what, we have to start challenging ourselves, and we've started to do that. Are there going to be better games down the road that we may want to face? Certainly. So we're in that middle kind of tier right now. We're not that elite team. We're not that mediocre team. We're somewhere in between, and to get better, we have to rise our competition to that next level as well. So there's two sides to that. I don't fault anybody for the schedules that they play based on the type of teams that they have and maybe the type of program that they have. But if you're an elite team and you're playing down all the time, you're doing those kids a disservice. And vice versa, if you're a really low tier team and the only thing you're doing is playing the cream of the crop all the time, you're not really setting your kids up, I don't think, for success. Definitely short term. Long term, you might be. But short term, it's tough to lose 20 games, right? You could legitimately lose.
It makes for a long year.
It makes for a long year. Now, if you're competitive and losing those games, man, next year we're going to win those games that we were close and we lost. So I can see a lot of different sides to that.
a lot of time for us to talk about it. Chad Garner, we will leave it there. Assistant varsity baseball coach Chad Garner of Fitchburg High School, along with Fitchburg Public Schools communication coordinator, parent, and former media member. We got a lot of time to talk about this before that next school year comes into play and we see this new tournament come to be. Chad Garner, thank you so much for being with us here on our show today. I really enjoyed having you here as part of Press Row, and we'll have you back on sometime real soon.
Excellent. Hey, Todd and Kate, thank you guys very much for doing this. Thank you for thinking of me for this. And, you know, we obviously all have a lot of time on our hands, but you know what? I just hope everyone stays safe, you know, really promote that social distancing, wash your hands, and believe that we're going to get back to some normalcy at some point. So you guys stay safe. All the best to you guys and everyone out there, and we'll all get through this together.
You stay safe and healthy as well. Same to your family. And thank you all so very much for being a part of this one here on Press Row. You can subscribe, all the information right there on your screen for you to see right now here at Rivalry Family Media. For Chad Garner, Kate Robbins, I am Todd Robbins, saying thank you so very much for joining us, and join us again next time here on Press Row. Until then, so long, everybody.
Yeah.